All right, Greek students, this is Dr. Hill, and here we are in Chapter 10, the third declension. I am fully caffeinated. I've had a donut, and so I am hopped up on all sorts of things that are going to help if we hit the third declension. All right, so it might be helpful to have your book open to Chapter 10. We're going to walk through a couple of paradigms of words that occur as third declension nouns. If you want to look at the endings, we've already gone over the endings in a previous lecture, but those are on page 101 in your book, 10.14. Look at those third declension endings. And so we're going to look at a number of masculine, feminine, and neuter words that occur in the third declension and how those endings interact with that final stem consonant. Okay, so we're going to start with the word sarx. And so the lexical form, what you'll find in your vocabulary, is it will be it'll look like this: sarx, and then it'll have a comma, and then it'll say sarkos, and then it'll say hey. And so when we memorize the word sarx, we note that this is the lexical form, which is the nominative singular. It is a feminine noun. It means flesh. And then this is the genitive singular form. And the reason why the genitive singular form is given is so you can see the stem of the word, which you cannot see in the nominative singular form. So, and this tells us that the final stem consonant is a kappa. And so what we're going to do is we're going to walk through how these endings work and how this works. So the reason why it is sarx is because what's happening is we are adding, here's our stem. Notice that on this I put the stem sark all the way down. We have the endings. These are the feminine endings, which are also the same as masculine endings in the third declension. I have those in red. And then I have the final form of what it's going to look like. And what we're going to see is that really the only place where you're not going to be able to see the stem is in endings, when it takes an ending that has a sigma in it, or that begins with a sigma. So the nominative singular and the dative plural. And this is going to be one of the things that we note, is that the nominative singular and the dative plural in the third declension are all going to do, they're both going to do the same sort of thing because they have a sigma that butts up against that final stem consonant. So sarx, sark plus a sigma, remember our square of stops, this velar, it butts up against a sigma, the sigma butts up against a velar, and so what we get is a kasi there. All right, so that's sarx. Here our genitive singular ending is the omicron sigma, and so we have sarkos, sarkos, and that is actually in the in our vocabulary that is provided so that we can see what the stem is. Okay? Our dative adds the iota, whereas in the first and second declensions, this iota subscripts under a vowel. It lengthens that vowel, it ablouts that vowel, and it subscripts underneath it. Since we do not have a vowel here, it is not going to subscript, it's simply going to tack on to the stem. Sark-e, sarki. Accusative singular. Similarly, we're adding that alpha on there to the stem. Sark-a, sarka. All right. Now, if you want to pay attention to where these accent marks are going, you can do that. I don't think that's extremely significant. That's a little bit more intermediate to advanced, is watching how accent marks move along words as endings are added. But this is a helpful way to take a look at this if you need it. Okay. And by the way, the full paradigm, what I'm walking through is really 10.7 in your book, page 97, and it'll walk through all of these things. Okay, let's keep going. Nominative plural. Here's our stem sark. Our nominative plural ending is epsilon sigma. So it's sarkes, say sarkes. And then we have that beautifully consistent ending in the genitive plural, which is own, sarcone, sarcone. And yes, this is a circumflex, not a tilde, but this is what is coming out of the book. Okay? And then here are dative plural, which we're going to see. Dative plurals have a sigma iota ending. This is a movable nu. It does or does not have to stay on there. And so we have that sigma, though, butting up against a velar, the kappa here. And so what happened, we see that up here in the nominative singular. Whatever happens in the nominative singular will also happen in the dative plural. So that kasi shows back up. And so sarksin becomes sarksin, or sarksin, I should say. Sarksi, or sarksin. Movable nu. It may or may not be attached onto there. Okay? And then finally, sarkos, sarkos. Okay? So this is the paradigm for the word sarx. It is a feminine word, and this is what happens when a velar is your final stem letter. All right? So that's sarx. So we're going to move on to another type of, another word as we move over here. We're going to move to what we call a mot stem noun. And so this is the word onoma. Onoma. And then what you'll probably see in your vocabulary is you'll have something like, it'll be a dash, and then it'll say matas. And instead of writing out ana, the whole thing, it'll just have the final, the ending, so you can see what the final stem vowel is. Matas, it's mat. So basically what we're trying to say here is that onoma is actually, the stem is actually onomat. Okay? And then when we also see it, it'll say ta onomat, or onoma, which means that it is a neuter noun. Okay, a couple things. The stem of onoma is onomat. And one thing that we're going to find is that there's a number of words that are mot-stemmed words. And typically, they will end ma, like pneuma or so-ma. So those mot stems are all going to behave the same way. And all mot-stemmed words are neuter. All mot-stemmed words are neuter. Okay? So here's how it breaks down. So we have the stem onomat. If you look in your endings, the neuter endings for the third declension, because this is a stem, it ends in a consonant, a dental, right? And the dental, one of our noun rules is that a tau cannot stand at the end of a word. You'll never see in Greek the last letter in a word as a tau. And since there is no ending for the neuter, the nominative neuter singular in the third declension, what happens is that tau drops off and what you get is onoma. Say onoma. Onoma. And onoma is the lexical form. And it's just one of those things that's unfortunate, as the lexical form does not give us the stem, and that's why we get that here. Okay? So here's our genitive singular, onomatos. You add that omicron sigma ending on there. That's the genitive singular ending. And so it becomes onomatos. Say onomatos. All right. Again, in the dative, usually our datives will subscript in the first and second declension, but in the third declension, you have that final stem vowel on the or final stem consonant. And so we have onomati. Say onomati. Okay? So onoma, onomatos, onomati. And then here we have, again, one of our rules, our noun rules is for neuters, the nominative and accusative forms will be identical. For neuters, the nominative and accusative forms will be identical. So in the singular, you have onoma up here and then onoma here. No ending, and it becomes onoma. All right, those are the singulars. Okay, I'm going to move this up just a tad so we can do the plurals. Nominative plural is the alpha ending, which is a very characteristic ending for neuter plurals, is onomata. So onomata. Let's say it together, onomata. And again, because you see it in the nominative singular, or the nominative plural, you're also going to see it in the accusative plural. Those are identical. And then we move over to the genitive, that very consistent own ending, omega nu. Onomaton, say onomaton. And then when we go to the dative plural, we have a sigma here. And again, our sigma and tau in our square of stops, tau is a dental, and when a dental butts up against a sigma, it wants to drop out. And so we have that anima seen, and that tau removes there. And we have, again, very similar, we don't see the tau in the nominative singular and the dative plural, which is the case in all third declension letters. All third declensions, you're going to see that the nominative singular and the dative plural, you're not going to be able to see the stem. Okay, so it's onomacin, say onomacin. And then accusative plural is the same form as the nominative plural, onomata, onomata. All right. So we've looked at, just to review, we started with sarx. Okay, this is a feminine third declension noun with a velar, this kappa, and we see how this behaves. We have just looked at mot stem words, so words like pneuma, soma, anima, rhema is another one. These are all mot stems. And if you ever see a lexical form that is a ma, it's probably a mot. Okay? And so all mot stems, again, this is so helpful for parsing. All mot stems are neuter. Okay? All mot stems are neuter. Okay? And that's anima. All right. So we're gonna move on to another form of this. And again, you can see all of these. I'm going to reach over here and grab this one. You can see kind of this. If you look on page 98, these are the ones on page 98. I'll put my book under here just for a second. You can see on page 98, 10.10, this is sarx, anima, and I'm going to do tis here in just a second. And on all of these, you can see the stem is there, the stem is there, the stem is there. Okay? So I'm just going to walk through some of these. And then, so let's finish out with this one. Lexical form here is tis. Tis is actually not a noun, it's an adjective. It's actually an interrogative. And I believe we learned it back a couple chapters back about tis. But the basic, I'm just going to kind of walk through tis. Tis, if it has an accent on it, it's an interrogative meaning who. And without the accent, it's an indefinite pronoun meaning anyone. So with the accent, it's a question. Without the accent, it's saying anybody. But they are both formed with the same stem, which is tin. Tin is the stem. So what you'll see is the lexical form is tis, but tin is the stem. And when you have, again, our special situation of the letter nu, it behaves much like a dental in that it will drop out if it butts up against a sigma. So tin becomes tis, say tis. And then as we move down, the nu is going to stick around because it's not butting up against another sigma again. So tin-os becomes tin-os, say tin-os. Tin-e becomes tin-e. And tin-a becomes tin-a. Again, very similarly, in the nominative plural, you add that epsilon sigma on, it's tin-es, tin-es. Tinon, genitive plural, tinon. And then when we come back down to dative plural, again, nominative singular and dative plural are behaving similarly because you have a sigma ending here. And again, with that sigma and that nu is going to drop out and that sigma is going to replace it. So tin-c becomes tissy, say tissy. And then accusative plural, you add that alpha sigma on there and that becomes tinos, say tinos. All right? And again, if these endings are looking foreign to you, continue to do your work on looking at your endings for your third declension nouns and adjectives. All right? And again, those are on page 101. And this we did the masculine feminine endings on tinos or on tis. Okay? All right, now Mounts, for some reason, does not give us all the patterns of third declension words in chapter 10 that he goes on, and he goes into chapter 11 to add some more. And I feel like that's just kind of piling on a little bit in chapter 11. And so I wanted to introduce these in chapter 10 just so you can see, if you go to 11.11 in your book, he has a little section more on the third declension. 11.11, stems that end in tau and delta, and I'll walk you through these. And so he will also then have on the next page, he'll have another noun, pistis, and then he'll have some other nouns that come along. So I'm just going to walk through these just to get these under your belt. Again, you don't have to have them all. You need to be familiar with them. Okay. So charis, say charis. Charis means grace. Charis means grace. But the stem of charis is charit. So we have, and the reason why this is happening, again, is you have a sigma butting up against a tau and a dental. And when that happens, the tau wants to drop out. And so charis is our lexical form, but the stem is charit. And so we see charis, charitas, chariti, charita. Okay, those endings, sigma, omicron sigma, iota. By the way, this is, charis is, I believe charis is feminine. Make sure about that. Charis is feminine. That's right. Charis is feminine. Okay. And so these are masculine feminine endings for the third declension. So charis, charitas, chariti, charita. Moving down to the plural. Charites, charitone. And then in the dative plural, as in the nominative singular, you have a sigma. And so that tau is going to drop out once again. And so the dative plural is going to be charicin or charici. It's a movable nu. Okay? But again, the tau is going to drop out. You do not see the stem. You do not see the stem in the nominative singular or the dative plural in the third declension. And then finally, the accusative plural is charitas. So here are endings: sigma, omicron, sigma, iota, alpha, epsilon, sigma, own, sin, os. Okay? That is our, that's charis. Okay, let's talk about phos. Phos is neuter, ta phos. It means light. Like a photon or a photograph. Phos is, the stem is phot, but you do not see that in the nominative singular. Okay? And that is because, why is that? You might say, well, you shouldn't say, you should know. You should anticipate this by now. And that's because you've got a tau here. When a sigma butts up against that tau, it wants to drop out. These are all dentals here, right? Elpis is also going to be in there, tau. So instead of phots, it's phos. Say phos. And then you get photos, photi. And since it is a neuter, what's our rule with neuters? The nominative singular and the accusative singular, both nominatives and accusatives, are identical as neuters. So you got phos, photos, photi, phos. Identical, the accusative singular. Moving down to the plurals, you have phota, which again, neuter plurals, very telltale sign. You got that alpha there. Photon, phosin, or phosi, and then phota, because, again, nominative and accusative are identical in the neuter. So here's our nominative plural, and here's our accusative plural. All right, and then our last one is is elpis. Elpis means hope. Elpis means hope, and elpis is also a feminine noun. The stem of, I always remember Elpis. I think I say this on the vocabulary thing, but people hope that Elvis is still alive, and so Elpis sounds like Elvis, hope. There you go. Or maybe you could remember it because when people yell help, Elpis, help, they're hoping that somebody comes to save them. Whatever works for you, okay? So Elpis, feminine. The stem of Elpis is Elpid. And the reason why that delta cannot be seen here is because delta is a dental. And dentals, when they butt up against a sigma or a sigma butts up against them, they're going to want to drop out. So everywhere else you'll see elpid, 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 elpid. Okay, but you do not see it in the nominative singular. You also will not see it in the dative plural. Okay, so let's go through these. Elpis, elpidos, elpidi, elpida. Feminine, so it's feminine endings in the third declension. Elpides, elpidon, and then our dative plural is the same or as similar to our nominative singular. You have a sigma there, so that the delta is going to drop out, and we have elpisi, elpisi. That's kind of fun to say, and then elpidos. You back to our stem. We see that, and over on the far side, you can see sarx as a means of comparison. We've already walked through the paradigm for sarx. Okay, so those are some other third declension nouns. I just wanted to introduce them now. There's a few more that I want to show because, again, chapter 10, we're learning a lot. We're learning the endings. We're learning and we're learning new endings. We're learning some new rules. And I just want to give you this introduction. These are in chapter 11, but I want to give you an introduction to these as well. There's a few more. You can look on. You could look at the word pistis, which is on 11.2. I'll actually show this to you because why not? In the book. Excuse me. There we go. So here's pistis. One of the things that happens, pistis is a kind of an interesting word because, can I zoom in any more? Pistis is an interesting word because it looks like it has a final stem vowel of an iota, pistis, but what it's called is a consonantal iota. And over the course of time, languages change, and in this case, the iota it was at one point a consonant, and just over time it shifts, and so it behaves a little differently than other vowels how shall I say this? It behaves differently than other stems that are vowels. So iota is technically not a vowel, it is a consonant, and so it will take third declension endings. And when it does, that iota is going to do some ablauting. It's going to add that epsilon, and it is going to lengthen the omicron in the omicron sigma ending, and it'll be pisteos. Say pisteos. I should say pisteos. Pisteos. And then adding another iota onto a consonantal iota makes this diphthong of a. So piste, piston, pistes, pisteon, pistesi, and pistes. So you can read the footnotes in your book. You might want to just walk through those a little bit more just to take a look. But these are third declension endings, and you're seeing some ablauting in the vowels in the endings, particularly here, and you're adding some extra vowels in along the way. So that's pistis. Okay, I'm going to look at one more example here. This is a group. This is on page 117, and we're going to look at the word hudor. Say hudor. That's the word for water. Hudor. The stem is hudat. So hudor, hudatas, hudati, hudor. It's neuter. And so again, nominative singular and accusative singular are the same. Hudor, hudatas, hudati, hudor. And then hudata, this is kind of a fun word to say. Hudata, hudaton, hudasi, and hudata. Neuter. Okay? So those are the same. All right. Here's another example. Pater. Pater is the word for father. It's masculine. Pater. But the stem of pater is pater. Pater. P alpha tau rho. And so we're going to see that in various places, but it's going to behave a little differently when we get down here. You have this eta here. We'll add an epsilon there. So just to walk through, pater becomes patros, patri, patera, nominative plural, pateras, pateron, patrasi, and pateros. Again, I don't think I ask you to reproduce these paradigms, but I want you to be familiar with them. Let's go over to mater. Mater is mother. So pater is father, mater is mother, it's feminine. And so you can see how that declines. These little dashes, it does not occur in the Greek New Testament in those forms. And then finally, on the very far side, you have aner. Aner means man or male or husband. So anthropos is more the generic term for man. Aner, and anthropos can mean man or mankind or people or things like that. Okay, and is more inclusive. Aner is much more gender specific in that sense. So when it says, like the husband of one wife, the aner of one gune, one man, a man of one woman. So aner is man, male, husband. The stem of aner is onder, alpha, nu, delta, rho. And so, so if somebody is, aner, andros, andri, andra, andres, androne, andrasi, andros. So all you need to do with these is be able to recognize what letter, recognize what word it is and be able to provide the lexical form and be able to parse it, but I'm not asking you to reproduce these paradigms. I might ask you to reproduce kind of the paradigmatic paradigm, so things like anima or sarx, so you can understand those rules. But these I just want you to recognize, okay? All right, the last thing, like I said, I am all hopped up on coffee and donuts, and so I'm really ready. I'm ready to rock, and so I just want to try this. One of the paradigms in your book is the paradigm for pos, okay? And I would urge you, I would urge you to take a look in your book at the paradigm of pos. And maybe what I need to do is just do a separate video on this. But pos is an adjective and it means all. So it'll either mean, in the singular, it'll mean every. It'll mean every. And as the plurals, it'll mean all. But one of the things about pos is it's an interesting paradigm because the stem of this adjective, the stem of the adjective pos, is in the masculine neuter, the stem is pont. That's the stem in the masculine neuter. But the stem in the feminine is pasa. Okay? So because of this, this is a 3-1-3 paradigm. What we've seen up to this point are 2-1-2 paradigm, like logos or the article is a 2-1-2 paradigm. But this is a third declension masculine, first declension feminine, third declension neuter. So it's a 3-1-3 paradigm. And so what we have with pos here, the stem is pont, but you want to add a sigma onto that. What does a tau want to do when it butts up against a sigma? It wants to drop. What does the nu want to do when it butts up against a sigma? It wants to drop, leaving pos. Okay, same thing here in the neuter. Since there is no ending here in the neuter, you have the stem of pont in the third declension neuter, but there's no ending. But what's our rule about taus? Taus cannot stand at the end of the word, and so the tau wants to drop out, leaving pon. So we remember that the lexical form of pos is pos, but it is pos, posapon. Since we're getting close to Christmas, when I was in Greek my first time, I studied at a study partner, Nicole, and she was a choir director, and so she remembered pos, posapon to the Carol of the Bells. Pos, posapon, pos, posapon. So if that's helpful, at the 29-minute mark in this lecture, you're going to need something helpful, okay? So we have pos, posapon, and then here's where our stem shows up. Pontos, third declension, pont, okay? And then passe, we have the alpha to eta shift that goes on here. So pontos, passes, pontos. I did a little lecture on the alpha to eta shift on the feminine, first declension feminine nouns and adjectives, alpha to eta shift. The rule is if the second to the last letter is in iota, epsilon, or rho, this does not shift from alpha to eta. But if it's anything else, it'll shift from alpha to eta in the genitive and the dative, and then back in the accusative. Okay, so yeah, this is a lot at the very end, but you can see how this works if you go down. Pos, pontos, ponti, ponta, pontes, ponton, posin, pontos. Again, what happens in the nominative singular happens in the dative plural. Feminine is very, again, pasa, passes, passe, pasan, just that alpha to eta shift here. And then passai, we have alpha, passon, passais, passas. Again, I probably will not give you the full paradigm to reproduce, but I do need you to recognize that passais is the dative feminine plural of the lexical form pas, and we would translate that as to all feminine things, right? All right. And then as we go to the neuter, again, our stem is pont. We have pon, pontos, ponti, pon. Neuters, nominative and accusative, are always identical. And then ponta, ponton, posin, ponta, ponta. One of the things you're going to see a lot of in the Greek New Testament is ta panta. Ta panta means all things. Ta panta, the everything, the all thing. Ta panta. So from him and to him and through him are ta panta, all things. Actually, that would be accusative, ta panta. But that's something you'll see quite a bit of in the New Testament. All right, that's a long one, but I wanted to introduce all those concepts to you. Third declension, take a look at chapter 10. These were from chapter 11 as well. So hopefully that was helpful.